Hey everyone, Joe Soto here, and I am extra excited for today's show. I've got a very special guest with me today. We have the honor of bringing on Ramy El-Batrawi, and this is the guy that defines been there, done that in a big way. He answers the question, can you really think and grow rich, with a resounding yes. And throughout his journey of 48 years, during which he lost and regained his fortune not once, but more than once, several times actually, you're going to learn how he applied the principles of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich to achieve extraordinary success. And that's quite honestly an understatement from what you're going to hear from this guy, to create what he calls an extraordinary life. And he believes that each and every one of you can have that as well. So stay right with me. We're going to come right back with Ramy, and you guys will not be sorry that you're here for this episode today. Tell your friends, share the video out, and we're going to get started here in a moment.
This is the Not Your Average Joe Show, where each week we bring you sales, marketing, and mindset strategies you need to get to your next level. And now, here's your host, international business mentor, Joe Soto.
Ramy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I don't know that anyone knows what they're in store for, but we're going to lay it on them. You recently, you wrote a new book based on your incredible story and how you applied the timeless principles of the late great Napoleon Hill, principles from his book, Think and Grow Rich. He obviously has written a lot of other books. However, your book tells your story, and I want to give people a glimpse of that story on the show today. Everyone, I don't tell people to just like they have to buy a book very often. This is a book you have to buy. You said something in an interview I watched, Ramy, that people who will read this book won't be the same person when they're done reading the book.
Right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, I'm going to hold up the book. I don't have a hard copy of the book yet because I'm still waiting for my copy to arrive. But look what I got. I've got the Kindle version, and it allowed me to highlight, take notes, and do all kinds of really important things that I needed to do to retain this, because this is one of those books where I felt like I was highlighting every other sentence that reflected the mindset that you've adopted from your time with Napoleon Hill. But let's back up. You achieved your first $1 million business when you were 17, but you were 12 years old when you ended up in Tampa. Why don't you give us a little backstory for how all this got started? Where did the principles come from? How did you learn about them at such a young age?
Well, I was 12 years old, and I don't know how, but this guy gave me this book. I don't remember why or what. And I was starting to read the book, and I was in school, and I was a kid everybody beat up on, and I had no friends. But when I was reading the book, I was resonating with everything it said. And the good thing about being that young, you're kind of dumb enough, and you haven't had the world affect your thinking yet, that I just kind of believed everything it said, and I kind of read it over and over and over. And I read about 20 times. And one of the biggest things that Napoleon Hill says in that book is don't procrastinate. So I just said, shit, I could spend another 3 years in high school, 4 years in college, 7 years, and I'd wait to do what I need to do then. I said, or I could leave right now. What can I accomplish in those 7 years? So I just packed up this little bag, hopped in. I just decided to leave. And just hitchhiked and ended up in Tampa, Florida, because I knew I wanted to be in America. And luckily, it only took 2 rides, and the guy was headed to Tampa, and I ended up in Tampa, and no money, but I had the book, and I had confidence that I know I could do it. I know it's going to be a journey, and just started sleeping under underpasses and different places, showering in the back of gas stations and things like that, until kept on trying things. But at 17, I finally figured out something that finally worked, that made money.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that. So you're 17, I would encourage people to get the book to get the full story, just in the interest of time. But you talk about finding a need and filling it. That's one of your keys to success. You already touched on one of the keys. Yeah, you already touched on one of the keys, which is the confidence that you had, and reading Napoleon Hill and how that kind of inspired that confidence, that that insatiable belief that you had that you could actually achieve something. You built $1 million business when you were 17 then.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I was at this walking by this Zayre's department store, which is like a Kmart or Walmart back then. They had like 260 stores on the East Coast. They're out of business right now. And then in front of the store, it was around Christmas time. I saw this guy blowing glass swans, and he was selling a lot of these glass swans and stuff. So I started talking to him. He said, "Yeah, he's there for the season." And I was thinking, well, the rest of the year you get all this traffic. Let me figure out what there is that people need that I can have this spot and make money with. And I went into the store, asked some employees, what do people ask for that you don't have? And a few people said, people ask if we cut keys, and we don't do that. So I said, no, that's a business I should do. So I went and bought a used key machine, and for $50, I got a table from a junkyard, got a register from at this restaurant I walked by, and I went to the guy with the key blanks, bought like $10 key blanks. So show me how to cut keys, and I'll buy all my key blanks from you, and I'm going to be opening up a whole bunch of stores. And so I went to the store manager after that. It took me a little while, a lot of rejection of let me have the spot for like 20%, and he finally did. And I started my first store. I made 600 the first week, and then within a year, I was in 250 stores.
Within a year, and then tragedy happens. They figure out that they could take over that business on their own. You probably didn't have the right lease agreement or business agreement with them at age 17.
Yeah, I didn't even have any lease agreement, zero.
Right.
I just went in there, went on there. I just thought I didn't
Yeah.
know business well enough. I was just so excited. I was generating money doing things. I was just going by and going and going, and all of a sudden they saw I was making on there. They were making a lot on their 20%, and I said, well, we'll just do it on our own. Give me 30-day notice, and threw me out, and I was broke again. But they didn't get the whole point was being in front of the store, and everybody walked by, said buy 2 keys, get 1 free. That was the whole pitch: buy 2 keys, get 1 free. People was like, oh, okay, I need to get a seat. But they ended up buying new machines, put in the back of the store unmanned, and they made a lot less money. So it was a lose-lose for everyone. But anyway, I was back broke. But again, like Think and Grow Rich says, through every adversity is a seed of equal greater benefits. So I just decided to find my next business that ended up making me a lot more money than the key centers would ever.
A lot more money. You're at 23, I think it's 20 or 24. You were already worth $50 million.
Yeah, and that was also by just talking to everybody, finding a need, and so I was back homeless again, and I invested all my money in the key center. So when they shut it down, I had no money left because I was just using the money to grow. And I walked by and I saw this guy in a body shop who was just he had a lot of cars being fixed. And I asked, what do you do? He says, well, I buy a car from one auction and fix it and sell it another auction, make money. So I said, well, I could do that. So again, that's where my next principle came: is you can make money. You make more money and accelerate by using other people's money. And that's where I used other people's money at the first time. When I remember a guy at one of their stores. He was a police officer supporting 6 kids, had 3 jobs, and I offered him the deal. You put up the money, you hold the title, I'll fix the cars, do all the work, and we'll split 50-50. And so I started first in the wholesaling cars, but then I was a little too aggressive. Also had to learn some things about the total titles and stuff. But on my last truck, again, it was like I spent way too much, and adversity, seed of equal greater benefit. This guy was looking at the van, and I talked to him and said, no, I'm not interested in the van, but I'm looking for van shells. And because custom vans were really big then, there was a big shortage of van shells. So I said I could do that. So I went around and started finding fan shells for him, bring him, give him got $600 a van. But then every time I would take one of his vans, because I would drop off and went into Tampa, the dealerships would buy them right away. And I saw they were making like $6,000-$7,000 a van.
They're making the money.
They were making money. So I said, I need to own a dealership. And that's another principle I put in there. You got to think of who benefits from you succeeding. And if you figure out who benefits from you succeeding, then you can approach them, and it's an easier sell. So I thought about it, and then at the end, I figured out that the guy who's building the vans, instead of running around selling vans everywhere, would benefit me having a dealership. So I went to him and took a lot of rejection again, but he gave me the first $1 million to open up the first dealership, and within a year, I had 6 dealerships across Florida and insurance companies and stuff. So I built a net worth about $50 million by that time.
Maybe it's not ironic, but maybe it's on purpose that you share your keys to an extraordinary life and extraordinary success throughout the book. And for everyone listening, if you've read Think and Grow Rich, obviously, hopefully you've read it multiple times. What Ramy does in his book through his storytelling is he splits that up with these anecdotal keys to extraordinary living, and basically his take on the principles, and then he adds to it. I have rarely seen, in fact, I've never seen somebody be able to add to Napoleon Hill's work in the way that you've done it and be so aligned with it that I think it actually improves upon what he kind of left us with by adding more keys to it. So that's what I thought was brilliant throughout it. It's what a lot of the notes and highlights I have here came from. One of them was mix what you want with intense emotions in order to drive you to even greater success.
Yeah.
So adopting
That's
that
really
feeling and that belief so intensely that you emotionally are vested into it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was one of the most important keys. By the way, is there too much glare? I can move to where
It is a lot of glare, but
yeah.
that's okay.
I'm gonna move
There's
spots.
also it's okay
So
because this is also
there's a
going to
lot
be on
less glare.
audio and everyone's listening to it on podcast.
Okay, great. So there's a lot less there. Yeah, that was one of the biggest principles that I ever that picked up is a lot of people can want something, wish for something,
Yeah.
but it doesn't do anything because they'll give up the first sign of any adversity. But building that burning desire behind it,
Yeah.
let you keep on going no matter what. And I learned that pretty early because in the book, even because I ended up in Florida, I went and saw the Coral Castle, which was a really interesting experience because it
You
kind
have
of
a picture of it in the book.
Yeah, because that cemented the idea. Because this is a guy who was 4'9", fell in love with this girl. She leaves him before the day before they get married, and he gets in so much pain and he's so depressed. But emotion is emotion. It could be pain, it could be love, sex, whatever it is. Emotion is emotion. So he was in so much pain, and he thought if he could build a castle, he could win her back. So he spent his life building this castle that nobody knows how he built this castle. I mean, the smallest stone is 2 tons. The door is 20 tons, perfectly pivoted. He had no tools. Nobody saw him how to work. And it didn't happen like 3,000 years ago. This is like 50, 60 years ago. So I went there and saw the castle. And even other people was looking at it as tourists. But it hit me. It's true. If you mix with enough emotion, you can accomplish that. And if you can build this castle, money is everywhere. I can make as much money as I want. So I realized, every time I had a goal, I would just feel emotion, mix it with a lot of emotion, and build a really strong burning desire, and then go after it. Because then your eyes open up, you see the ways of doing it. Just like he found a way to probably levitation or something. But your mind starts opening up and thinking faster or more wide. It's almost like the universe has all the information and you're a radio station, and when you mix it with emotion, you start tuning into the station of where you want to go. So that's why I use the emotional part, because if you just sit there and say, okay, I wish I had $1 million, that's it. But if you really have emotion and it keeps you up at night and you're thinking about it, it's just like if you think about like when you met your wife, you fell in love with her and you were really emotional and you chased her. I don't know how long it took you to win her over, but you thought up with a lot of great ideas to win her over until you finally won her over.
Yeah.
So it's using that same kind of principle, but in business, having that same kind of emotion and intensity also.
I'm still chasing her around the house, Ramy.
Yeah, I know that.
Although not as much as I used to. 9 children. Okay, so let's keep moving. Let's fast forward a little bit. You end up starting a media company. You take that public. You were helping John Gray with his Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus book launch. You were a big piece of that success, and he credits you and endorses you and this book I saw as well. And so I know I'm fast forwarding through some really highlights of your story, but then 9/11 hits. Tell everyone what happens.
Well, 9/11 hits. I first. There's a big important part that when you talk about Khashoggi, but we can go back after that. Anyway, I built about $1 billion by the time I was 32, and then I wanted to take a break, so I came to California, and I thought this was the best place to play at the Playboy Mansion, stars and everything. But again, I meet John Gray, and I said I can't just sit around, so I started that business, and then I had another 75 products I was just building, and I took a company public and took that to $1 billion. And then 9/11 hits, and that's when again, because I had an Arab name, Adnan Khashoggi owned 40% of the company, and I don't know if people remember this, but when that 9/11 hit, the market actually shut down for 2 weeks, and there was a lot of panic. So all my stock was tied up, and all my money was tied up in the markets and stuff. So it collapses, and
Yeah.
I lose everything I had in basically that one day. 9/11 kind of destroyed me. But at the same time, we were targets because we had Arab name. Khashoggi was known as Saudi arms dealer. So all of a sudden, the FBI agents were coming in, and then we're targets, and they're all thinking that we're terrorists or something else. And so I had to fight the government for 7 years, and they never ended up indicting me. I even put the letter in the book showing that they declined, but it was 7 years of them offering, take 4 years, you can go to jail for 100 years, and 20 million attorney fees, and fighting every single day with them. And they were nonstop and relentless, and I had the power of the government. But that's another reason why Think and Grow Rich is really important, because it's not only for money, it's for everything. Like, I wouldn't have been able to fight that fight and win that battle if I didn't use every single principle that Napoleon Hill put on there, because I was not going to give up and make a deal with him. I was just going to fight and win no matter what it took.
You share in the book that your attorney said that he's seen in less than 2% of the cases anyone come out of that the way that you did.
Yeah, he's seen 2 letters issued in his whole career as a prosecutor and everything else. So, and most people make a deal, but a lot of people live in fear.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of innocent people in jail. Would you rather take 4 years and make a deal, or you'll spend over 100 years if you lose in court and the government wins 98%? And so, to me,
and you fought it.
For me, I fought it because I don't live in fear, and I knew that I didn't do anything wrong. So,
an amazing part of your story in overcoming adversity, and how and speaks to the resilience that you have, because you did make a comeback from that. But let's rewind a little bit, because you mentioned Adnan there briefly, and you share in the book how you're essentially at home watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, a great show. With Robin Leach. How did that inspire you, and how did that lead to that relationship? Let's talk about that.
Well, I was watching, it was my favorite show at the time too, because, I was into the lifestyle, and I thought I had it made. I mean, I had $50 million. I had the best sports car, the best house in Tampa. I was living large, and I invited a few friends and watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And it was the only time and the first time they ever put out a 1-hour special on anybody. And it was the richest man in the world at the time, Adnan Khashoggi. And they were showing his lifestyle. And it was great. He had 35 homes, 7 jets and a yacht and all that. But that wasn't the part that really impressed me. It was his $12 billion deals here, multi-billion. He was a head of state without a state, traveling the world, making billion-dollar deals, and was more powerful than almost any head of state. He knew every president. And then I realized after I finished watching, this is who I wanted to be. I said, I stopped short of my goal. It made me feel like I had nothing.
And you were complacent.
In the 80s was a lot, but it still made me feel like, wow, I got nothing compared to this guy. And again, thing grows, don't procrastinate. I just told everybody that was watching, I'm going to be working with this man one day, and they all laughed at me and everything, but I like when people doubt me. So within 2 weeks, I sold everything I had at a fire sale, probably at a quarter of what was worth, and then I went looking for him. And make long story short, it took me 2 years to finally find somebody that knew him, and then it took me once I met him, it took me another 2 years to convince him to let me work with him. So it was a 4-year drive to get to know, with 1,000 rejections, but by the age 32, I was worth $1 billion because of him. So I achieved what I wanted. I traveled the world. I met every head of state, and I ended up with my own airplane, because when I got on this plane, so I became a lot like him. And it's interesting. You could believe, I was saying, okay, $1 billion is great and stuff, but until you really believe it and see it and live it, then you're really convinced. Like when I first saw Adnan in his apartment, and then started having dinners with other billionaires and everything, the billionaire mindset then started setting in, and said, oh, this is not just a dream or hope or only for a few people. These guys can do it. I can do it, kind of thing. And I didn't think they were that much smarter than I was either. I mean, I started negotiating with them, and I was out negotiating them in deals and stuff. And it got me to where I totally believe that this is just the way life is. So you're only, just like the book says, the only limitations you have is the limits you put on yourself. So, so I removed those limits too. Before it was in the millions, I removed the $1 billion limits. And that's what people do a lot. They put the limits on themselves a lot. and you become what you think of most of the time. And I put it in the book. Like if you're a doctor, like I say, you go to medicine school, medicine, study medicine, do residency, study journal, treat patients. Then you're a doctor. Then you have blinders, which is you're going to earn whatever it's $750 a year or whatever doctors earn, and you don't have blinders. You don't see other opportunities. So you are a doctor. If you're a waitress and thinking that you're going to make $500 a week, and that's all you're limited to, that's all you're going to be. So whatever you think of most of the time is what you're going to become. So I decided to think most of the time of finding opportunities and creating great wealth. So it's very important to change the way you think if you're going to change your life.
I love that, that you had $1 million limits and they had $1 billion limits. And
Right.
people don't always think like that. And I think that's really profound. You hinted to this a minute ago also, and it's one of your principles. I highlighted it and typed it up. It says, discard doubt, but do not discard those who have helped you and believed in you.
Right.
So when you lost it all and regained it all, when you were trying to pursue, this relationship to be Adam's right hand and be able to model what he was doing for, successfully, and be able to turn that into your own success. Did you have some haters, some doubters, some people who didn't think you'd be able to do it?
Oh, every step of the way, people don't believe I was going to be able to do it, and the people that did help, I took care of. I mean, there was one guy when I was totally homeless when I was 15, 16, helped me a little bit, took me to
Piccadilly.
Yeah. For about a month.
I've eaten at Piccadilly, so I know.
Yeah, I ended up owning that chain of restaurants.
I can't believe that.
It was a cool thing to do.
I mean, last time I ate there, I was in my young 20s, and I want to say it was Atlanta or Florida, but when I read that in the book, it took me back to that age going, I love that. It's huge cafeteria style, a little higher in though, but really awesome.
It was great.
And you ended up owning and selling it. Yeah.
Yeah. I bought it in 1994 or during the whole battle, 2004. Sorry. But Earl Ferris was the guy, I took care of, because he helped me for a month. I took care of him for the rest of his life until he died. And then like John Gray, who helped me when I went down this last time, I bought him a bed. I take care of people that do help you. You can't forget. You have to give back. So I don't ever forget the people that do help me along the way. Yeah. Again, there's very few. A lot of people they think about themselves. They don't like helping other people. They're more self-centered. So it's hard to find. But when you do, you gotta keep them close.
I also, there's, you talk about in the book how you learn pain is usually a greater motivator than gain. But you write, make your hope of gain greater than your fear of loss. Talk to us about that. How do people restore hope when they are, maybe a little bit overwhelmed with some fear? How do they do that?
Yeah, that is a complete shift of mindset, which I learned. And I learned that pretty early on also. I was invited to this network marketing. This guy called Glenn Turner had Dare to Be Great back in the early 80s or something. But he was really the father of the MLM movement and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so he did this chart and he was showing me how everybody starts in their life. At 18, you get your first car, and then by 20, you move out and you get your furniture and your apartment. So you get it. Now you have to work to pay for these things, and you don't have fear of losing. You meet Miss Susie Wright at 23. You get married, second car, a house, kids. And now you're working day in and day out because you don't lose the small things that you have. So that fear of losing, you'll stay in that job. And then you're working 9 to 5, live for the weekends. And then once a year, you have a vacation. And you do this day in, day out till you're 65 or however old now. You retire a lot later, but back then it was 65. And the average person lived 2 years after retirement, and you get a gold watch, and that was it. And I saw that picture, and I said, no way. I'd rather be totally broke or have an extraordinary life. I was not going to live a mediocre life. So I knew I had to reverse to where I have to live with no fear. I can't be afraid of losing the things that I have. So most people are afraid to lose their house or their family or not support their family or kids, which is great. But I wanted to live something different. So I was willing to risk everything. And just like when I sold my businesses, I had no guarantee I was going to find Adnan Khashoggi, but I sold a chain of dealerships that were growing at 50 million. I was going to risk it all to achieve my goal. Every time I went after, I risked everything, and that's part of inside of Think and Grow Rich about burning your ships. You got to
Yeah.
burn your ships because it gives you no choice but to succeed. But you can't be afraid of doing it. That's where a lot of people are at. They're afraid of, okay, I can't do it. I can't lose what I have. I need a backstop. What happens if it doesn't work? But when you start thinking that way, how do you build that drive? How do you not stop when things get tough? That's the only way you achieve these things, because you're not afraid. How do I not fight the government? And I could face 100 years. I could take this 4 years. If I had fear of that 100 years, I'd take that 4 years. So it's really just living without fear. But
Remarkable.
it buys you, on top of the benefit of it, it buys you freedom. It's amazing how free you feel when you don't live with fear. And I can walk in Skid Row and walk around and not be afraid anything's going to happen. And your attitude carries you, and nothing happens to you. So it's like I couldn't win the love of my life if I had fear. Too young, too good, or what. It's just living with fear cripples you and limits you. So getting rid of fear opens up the door for everything.
I love this. This is brilliant, Ramy. You also started a company that Yayo that
Right.
would buy cars and then rent them to Uber and Lyft.
Right.
Uber and Lyft drivers who couldn't afford the newer cars that they would have to have in order to be able to do that. But that was really a time when you were able to also pivot that company. And I think this lesson of how you pivoted that company and how it ultimately took off, exponentially took off, speaks a lot to this mindset, because most people, they hit certain walls, they give up, they quit. That idea didn't work. They don't give it the time to push it through, or the way to work around an idea. Because you started multiple businesses that the business idea you started with wasn't actually what the business turned into.
Right. So you have to learn how to shift. So
how do they do that?
When I started that company was to do a meta search app like Kayak, of all the apps that Uber, Lyft, taxis and stuff. But I raised money and I was building it. And then I found that Uber and Lyft, they want to share their APIs, which to integrate to make the app work. And I was a year down the road and spent millions of dollars. And then it was a hard stop. So I just didn't want the investors to lose money. So I just said, okay, what can I do that the Uber and Lyft does need? And they needed drivers with cars. So I pivoted and shifted and started buying cars and renting it to drivers who wanted to work with Uber and Lyft. And that grew. And then I took that public. But that was another battle. Again, everything is because I left my self-led shows. I worked really hard. It was 2 years because of how I got delisted back on the Genesis Intermediate days. It took 2 years for them to list me when it usually takes 3 months. I had to go back to Washington 3 times, fight with them, give me rejection, make me jump over things over and over until I finally got listed. And it's just a pure battle with everything. But we'll also step back about what happened beforehand, also before that company. And then I have all these other companies that I'm building now. But again, I think the most interesting part of the book is really the last part of the book about how I went, because it's one thing to make $1 billion or make a lot of money but most people, after they lose it, they don't come back. And I want to show that you could do it over and over, just if you had that mindset.
Like I said, I don't know if I've ever met anybody more extraordinarily resilient as you to be able to bounce back. I had a person compliment me when I was younger, and they complimented me with how resilient I was in sales and in the business I was working in. And that I really took that to heart, because I think that's one of the toughest things to learn. And so you teach it throughout your book. Every single chapter has lessons of overcoming adversity. And you have something in your book where you said adversity is never permanent. And I think that's what stops people. They think that it is. They don't think it's going to end unless they stop or give up. And
that's when it becomes permanent. When you make a decision, it's permanent.
Yeah. So what do you say to somebody right now who feels really stuck, like they're spinning their wheels, they're on a hamster cage, they're not sure how to get off? What advice would you give them?
It just changes the way you're saying. You're probably thinking of that problem way too much. I mean, one of the things that we have in touch upon, which again I said the last part of the book, is when I ended up totally fighting the government and I lost all the money and everything, I was once again back homeless. And on top
Yeah.
of that, I was saying in the book that these doctors thought I should be an antidepressant because I'm fighting the government to deal with it better. So I was on a script happy doctor that wrote me way too many prescriptions and made my mind work less than 5% of its capacity. And so as I'm fighting the government and everything, when it was all done, I was back in the streets. I had $21. This is what I'm saying, even death doesn't stop you. I took too many pills that one night, and I ended up actually dying. I mean, I was dead for
Yeah.
20 minutes. For 2 days, I was on machines, didn't know if I was going to come back or not. And then when I was released from the hospital, I was in the streets, $21, and I decided, okay, I need to build back up. But the good thing is I decided to take 3 months and cut cold turkey, all those pills. And people thought I was insane because I was in the streets, kind of nuts. They put me in a mental institution 3 times during that 3 months. But at the end of the 3 months, those withdrawals were gone. And I was back to thinking the way I was when I was building all that. And I knew what I could do. And I gave myself time limit of 5 years. I was going to build back everything I had and more. And that's so I was totally clear. And I borrowed $10,000 from John Gray, and from that I was able to just get it rolling, get some ideas going, start raising money. And now I have half a dozen companies. I have my one of the most expensive jets, and back I got my house back, and I'm now bigger than I ever was, and still growing, and gonna have in the future. So it's basically just there's nothing that really can stop you if you just make up that decision of I'm not going to be stuck there. Look for other things. If there's no problem that's big enough. Like I've had every excuse, every problem there was, and everything else. I just thought beyond that. I just thought, okay, what do I want to attract? What do I want? Build a burning desire behind it, and then look for the opportunities to achieve those things. Because it doesn't matter all these little problems people have and they get stuck on. It's just because that's what they're thinking most of the time. So they're stuck there. So now they got to change the way they're thinking and think about something else, what they really want, and then all those little things kind of will just drop away, and they'll find ways of solving that problem. I mean, the solutions will come, and they'll find the opportunities that they need to grab hold on.
Ramy, there's so much to unpack in what you just went through. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So there's a picture in the book, everyone, of Ramy on the street, barefoot, holding a $20 bill and a $1 bill kind of crumpled together. I think that's what the picture was. It was 21. His book illuminates this story unlike you can believe, because he adds in the anecdotal annotations of his own keys to an extraordinary life to complement and supplement quotes in the book from Napoleon Hill. The story he tells chapter to chapter strings together these lessons you're hearing him share here, and how he used the mindsets of Napoleon Hill to come back, to have this comeback story over. It's not just a comeback story. These are comeback stories that Ramy has. And almost, there's a picture of you laying in the hospital bed or laying in the gurney, dead, basically. Like you said, you flatlined for 20 minutes. It's also important to note the doctor who was happy to prescribe whatever, overdoses worth of medicine here, lost his license, right? No longer is practicing. And everything you heard here was he saw this adversity as temporary and just kept always thinking even though I'm in this situation, there's going to be a way out. That thinking, that ability, that mindset that you've honed through your study of Napoleon Hill, but more importantly, your practice of it. I think there's a lot of people who have read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and he's created a lot of millionaires from that book, but not a lot of people can apply it like you have over and over again and still be as optimistic as you are. You are relentlessly optimistic. And I know it comes from you applying this stuff in your own life. It's amazing.
Well, the great thing about Napoleon Hill's work, it's based on truth, and truth lasts the test of time. That's why after 100 years, it's still one of the best-selling books in the self-help arena. So it's all he took 20 years to put that book together. and it's gold, and it's all based on truth. So you apply these things, and they actually do work. And once you start applying some of these principles and you see it succeed, then you have more confidence to apply the others, and success just kind of begets success, and you have more confidence in living that way. But actually, those pictures you were talking about, I actually took a lot of those pictures on purpose because I knew I was gonna succeed, and I wanted to document where I was at and where I was going to do. And I even have some videos I didn't share, but I taped some of the things that I said. And even when I was 13, I remember, and I can't seem to get hold of it, but the guy doesn't want to give it to me. But I taped also at 13 where I was going to be at. At 13 years old, I recorded everything where I said, I'm going to be at this level in my life. So
Amazing.
I always knew it, and I saw it in my mind. And that's why when I took those pictures, I said, I know in 5 years, it's very, Napoleon says, set a time limit. It's very important, or you'll just kind of drag it on. That can get it all back. So I wanted to document how broke I was. So like this, when I do get it back, people will believe it, that did happen, because I could go broke tomorrow again. You could take me any part of the world. 6 months later, I'll have all the money in the world again. It's just, money is really one of the easy things to make, is if you believe it. The thing is just, you have to believe it.
Yeah, and you have to believe it at an intense emotional level that you spoke of earlier.
Yeah,
and Ramy, now you're
a wish or hope.
Yeah, and now you're not only are you back, you're building a $1 billion business and your own new enterprises and making deals on your way to making more deals around the world. I think paying homage to Adman, really well, and tell us a little bit more about what the future holds for you.
Well, definitely. Right now, my main company, and I do have a show in Vegas, but my main company is called EV Mobility. So we're putting these Teslas in apartment buildings and hotels as an amenity, so people can just use the app and just go down there and just use the car. $25 for the first hour, 45 cents a minute, and we're signing up a whole bunch of REITs. So we'll be in thousands of buildings, 20,000. And right now, is everything going EV? That's a company easily in the next year or two I could sell for $3-4 billion or something.
So cool.
And so we're working on a lot of other projects. I come up with new ideas. I sleep 2-3 hours a night, and I think of new ideas. I can't execute on every single one of them because I just don't have enough time. But we're working on building that desalination plant in Africa. So because I have a shortage of water. Again, it's all needs, and you're filling it. And so I have no idea where I'm going to be at in 5 years from now, but I know it's a lot more. I don't know what businesses I'll be at, because almost every business I've been in, I thought of it that day, then started it, because I execute right away. So I know there's going to be a whole bunch of new things going to come up, and I'm just going to execute and just do it. And
one of my favorite pictures of the book, Ramy, is you're sitting outside. I can't remember the backdrop, but I remember you specifically have like a notepad, pages flipped over, writing on the notepad, and underneath it says, "Always strategizing, always creating."
Right.
That image is implanted in my head, and there's a couple reasons. I had listened to a podcast with Seinfeld on there, and he was talking about how he used notepads for creating, and he wrote all of his episodes of Seinfeld on a yellow pad, which I thought was amazing. He never did any of it on a computer.
Right.
But that made me feel good, because I have notepads all over my desk and everywhere. I'm like, so if my wife yells at me about all these notebooks I have, I say, listen, I'm always creating, I'm always strategizing, according to Ramy. So I love that. Even the images, the pictures, the documentation of your life along this way, this journey is inspiring. And I hope that you'll come back on the show sometime. If you guys have not already picked up a copy of the book, this is a must-have. It's called "Can You Really Think and Grow Rich?" is the name of the book. I have it on my Kindle here, and I have a hard copy on the way. I just didn't want to wait to read it and wanted to get it read. I felt like I was. You said something in the book where you said a person, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, won't be the same person at the end of reading the book as they were at the beginning, and that is most certainly true. Thank you for writing this book. I think it's needed.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I just want to add a couple really quick things. About the notepad, it is better than a notepad, because there's no way I could type as fast in my mind and thinking. Sometimes once I'm done writing all my ideas, I can't even read my handwriting because I've gone so fast. But I get enough of it. And what's really good is I really do encourage, if nobody read Think and Grow Rich, to also read that book, because this is a good foundation. Then my book kind of takes it to the next level. And even which I'm sure you've seen the emails. So even Don Green, who's the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, endorses the book, and he's been helping a lot on their websites, on their Facebook, because he feels, part of the interview, that I took Napoleon Hill's work to one extra level. I finally, somebody totally proved out his work, because and that's what I've done. I was able to immerse myself and proved out what Napoleon Hill's research was over and over again. And they're a big supporter, and it's good, really good to have their endorsement and their backing. And that site where you're at, you can buy the book, and you could also buy it on Amazon. But the problem was what's going on with all these shortages. Amazon takes 2 to 3 weeks to deliver because of the shortage of paper.
Yes.
So I had the books printed and everything, so we could fulfill it. So you could have the book in 2 days.
So if you order off of Ramy's site here, this URL, you'll have it in 2 days, because you started your own publishing company.
Yeah, might as well. And I just printed the books and it's selling. But it was Amazon, because when I put it on Amazon, I saw it was 2-3 weeks. I said, nobody's going to want to wait 2-3 weeks to get a book. So there's an ebook on Amazon, but on my site, the ebook will be live, and also there'll be an audiobook live on my site and Amazon also. But through my site, and also if you want to, this is just a fun thing, is I put a registration page. So anybody who register, we're going to do a drawing like once every 2 or 3 months, and they get to go on my plane and spend a few hours with me, and we could talk personally and just fly around. And it depends where we're going to go. I don't know what part of the world we'll be going at that time, but
amazing.
We'll spend some time, and we could have a personal talk with whoever kind of registered. I thought that would be a fun thing to do.
Ramy, you're amazing. And I never more congruently meant that word before.
Thank you, Joe.
You are amazing. Thank you for inspiring this group, this audience. You've seen some of the comments of people popping up here. If you're listening to this, go to canyoureallythinkandgrowrich.com, just like it sounds, and pick up a copy of the book. Get registered so you can have a possible opportunity to be on Ramy's jet. But more importantly, thanks for just pouring out to us today. I know you're one of the busiest people literally in the world. We went over our time. I hope you're going to forgive me for that. I'm going to have to owe Ramy a few of some things, but we really appreciate you. And I know this message needs to get out there. I'm going to do my best to help. If you're on this, you're listening to this podcast, share it out, review it. If you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, share it out so we can spread the message, because a lot of people, especially now in turbulent times, people need this book. This book doesn't just lift you up. This book gives you the fuel and an inspiration to actually take the action steps that Napoleon Hill so much preaches in his book, and Ramy brings it to life in the book. So I love it, and love you for being with us. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, Joe.
And I'll be right back with you. Everybody else, we'll see you guys next week on the Not Your Average Joe Show. How many of you would agree? Right? I agree in the comments if this was Not Your Average Joe with us today. Thank you, everyone.
Tune in next week for the Not Your Average Joe Show with international business mentor Joe Soto.